I'm 5 years old, and you are too. I boast about how my little sneakers light up with its colorful lights as I stomp in the sandpit. You're hungry, and you know that I have candy as you hear my pockets crinkling from the wrappers. You find a beautiful rock, very round, from under the swings, and you offer it to me in exchange for some sweets. That right there is economics in a nutshell. Supply and demand, the invisible hand of the market. No one understands scarcity, value, and bargaining like children, and no one questions the world more boldly than they do. Today, I want to take you through the eyes of a child to show you why intuition and curiosity, the two things we unfortunately lose the fastest as we grow, are the keys to better thinking, better decision making, and yes, better economics. We think we start learning about the economy when we open our first econ textbook in middle school or high school. We think we start understanding the economy when we receive our first paycheck, open our first bank account, or pay our first taxes. But we'd be wrong. We engage in economic behavior from the moment we are brought into this world. The economy is something natural, instinctive. It is intrinsic and embedded in our culture and relationships as humans. And that is exactly why children get it. What took economists decades to accept, children have been showing all along. To demonstrate, econ models rely on three assumptions. 1, that people know what they want. 2, that people's economic decisions reflect these wants. And 3, that people always act to maximize their satisfaction. We all know that isn't entirely true or applicable to all cases. In the late 20th century, behavioral economics emerged to question this idea of perfect rationality, the idea that people don't always act as what traditional economists consider to be the optimal choice. Children operate entirely in this context-dependent, human-centered way. This brings me to question, how do I prove to you that children understand the economy better than we think? Exhibit A, barter. Long before money existed, we traded what we had for what we wanted. Civilizations bartered grain for tools, and a bunch of 7-year-olds trade Pokemon cards. Kids intuitively understand this ancient system. Exhibit B, trade. Kids nowadays go beyond barter. They use digital currencies such as V-Bucks, Robux, and in-game gold. They understand scarcity, limited editions, updates, and how new items shift demand. Concepts like market competition, evolution, and innovation, all through the tap of a screen. Exhibit C, added/perceived value. Back when I was in primary school, I used to make handmade bracelets, necklaces, and decorated notebooks. If one of my bracelets was the favorite color of one of my clients, she was inclined and was willing to pay more than the worth of the bracelet, regardless of its inherent value. We call this subjective value theory in economics. The idea that value isn't decided objectively or on the good itself, but rather on the customer's personal preferences, needs, and circumstances, all fluctuating based on context. Exhibit D, market exchange, reciprocity, and redistribution. Market exchanges are based on transactions between people. Is that not the tooth fairy? Or better said, el ratón Pérez. He takes your tooth from under your pillow and gives you money in exchange. Reciprocity involves the exchange of goods and services that is rooted in a mutual sense of obligation and identity. It's like giving turns on the swings, because it is a mutually established rule that ensures everyone can play. Redistribution occurs when an authority of some sort, say your parents, take economic contributions from all community members, such as pocket change from you and all of your siblings, and redistributes these back in the forms of goods and services, buying all of you a shared treat. These all come from the field of economic anthropology, where it studies how and why we meet our needs, oftentimes in unique ways or in matters that can't be explained by contemporary economics. This goes to show that children's understanding of the economy goes beyond textbook knowledge. As we grow, we get taught too much. We become plagued with the multiple variables we have to consider, our vision obstructed by the endless possibilities, and we forget the basics. In reality, it's much simpler than we think. For clarity and better understanding, we must simplify and see things at face value. Complexity does not equal superiority. If I had to be honest, I think the best entrepreneurs I've ever seen aren't the ones wearing suits, driving fancy cars, or are on the Forbes top 50 list. Rather, they eat glue, have never had more than 10 candles on their birthday cake, and barter with rocks and candy as if they were commodities. One of the only memories I have from my early primary days was this market simulation day. We were assembled into groups, and you had 5 roles to choose from: the buyer, the seller, the producer/negotiator, the secretary/accountant, and lastly, the banker. As the seller, I was relentless, loud, shamelessly persuasive, and absolutely convinced that whatever we made, which were just simple paper crafts, was priceless. I don't think I'll ever be as good a negotiator as I was back then. So I guess you could say I lost some entrepreneurial attributes as I grew up. But what makes children such good entrepreneurs? Because they ask why. Children are very curious creatures. This distinctive feature of theirs is usually treated like a negative thing. Whenever we have an annoying or pestering kid that just won't leave us alone, or a family cousin at the dinner table asking irrational questions, we often respond with, "Oh, just because," or "because that's just how it works." And lastly, stop asking why and eat your damn food. We've all been there, whether it be the ones answering the questions or the ones asking them. I have an autistic younger brother, and his development comes at a slower pace. So his questions and the endless stream of whys is longer, much longer. However, through answering his doubts and rolling my eyes, I realized how true the quote of, "If you can't explain it to a child, then you don't know it," really is. Not only is it complicated to simplify the terminology, but the order and the way in which I say it. I'd even go as far as to change the quote, adding that if you can't explain the concept until the child is satisfied, then you don't know it. Kids question assumptions and thus expose flaws in our understanding, which we wouldn't have been able to do if we hadn't questioned and broken the rules in the first place. So I ask you, much like the children, why have we stopped doing that? It's a little funny, because this question embodies all of my points and exemplifies what we should start doing more of. In philosophy, this is called the Socratic method. The inquisitor asks questions about the hypothesis after careful analysis and critical thinking. It addresses the hypothesis' weak points. The interlocutor then defends his ideas and responds accordingly. This session continues until a satisfactory conclusion emerges. This is what children do naturally. They don't have to be a famous ancient Greek philosopher in order to probe their knowledge and yearn for more. They don't have to be Socrates. They don't have to be a philosopher in order to ask these kind of questions. From an early age, we are taught that there is no one right answer, and it incentivizes us to test rationale, reasoning, and evidence. Their most annoying quality is ironically their smartest one. So how does this apply in the real world? As we grow older, we become complacent with our own understanding and comprehension of the world around us. Once we find a method that works, we stick to it, going on autopilot. This is where children have us beat. Their imagination to create games and their innovative thinking to create rules for this game on the spot. And lastly, their creativity to come up with unconventional solutions that adults would never even consider. As adults, we second guess, overanalyze, and under-question. About 3 months ago, I attended a marketing summit hosted by IE. One of the key discussions was how technology hasn't just changed marketing tools, it shifted who controlled the narrative. With AI, hyper-personalized feeds, and algorithms, brands no longer own their message the way they used to. Instead of a top-down marketing approach, we're implementing bottom-up strategies where consumers write the script, shape relevance, and essentially become co-creators. In a way, the world is behaving like a child, breaking structures, overturning old hierarchies, and just behaving like a child in general. Power that once belonged to brands, institutions, and corporations now sits with the individuals. But here's the catch. Even though old power structures are crumbling, society has never been more reliant and dependent on algorithms. We have given up our decisions, our attention, and sometimes even our thinking. It's the same complacency I mentioned before, just dressed up in technology. So after the summit, I thought, maybe, for the first time, slowing down is the next move. After decades of fast-paced developments and extreme progress, maybe stepping back, asking why, and reclaiming our curiosity is the next big innovation. The world is already shifting in our favor. It's giving the reins back to people, but only those who are childish enough to take them. Imagine you're 5 again. You're wearing the new clothes your mom has bought for you, and you're ready to make a deal to get your way, just like you've always done. Except now you're in Wall Street. Except now you're taking an important economic decision. What would be your next move? What I'm trying to say is, try to mirror your childhood boldness in your everyday life and your economic endeavors. Weigh your options and have the mind of an adult. Reclaim simplicity, trust your intuition, and stay curious. Thank you.